Welcome to the Executorium Podcast. I'm Bill Gross, your host at Bill Gross Probate on social media. We get together every week and bring resources to executors who are managing trusts, estates. It's a challenge. It can be a very challenging experience, not for everybody, but for many people, most people, very challenging in terms of the administrative work, the technical work. But I would say before all that comes your mindset and how you process, who you are, where you are, and what your role in the process is. Really excited to have today a specialist on joy and how to inhabit joy. And I don't know that she can promise that you can be the executive of a trust and be joyful all the time, but she certainly can help you find it more often. Michelle Ann Collins. Michelle, thank you. Michelle, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for having me.
So Inhabit, and also this Executorium podcast, we have you as a vendor on the Executorium website. You're out of Oregon, but your work is online. You have books, you have resources and such. And I know you talked about how you got connected because you had your own trust issue that you were involved with. Not trust in trusting somebody, but trust in terms of legal entity. But talk about how the executors that you've talked to can benefit from kind of centering themselves or meditation or some of the other tools that you talk about.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great question and opportunity because, I work in grief. I'm a grief educator and a grief coach. And one of the things that can be the most burdensome, especially if you are not prepared, like I wasn't with my husband's suicide, if it's a sudden loss, you're dealing with this sort of shock post-loss brain fog. We call it grief brain. And you're supposed to be doing this project that involves, a huge spreadsheet, getting paperwork, getting, whose name is this utility in? And there's all these details at a time when your brain is at one of its least functioning times. So the idea of mindfulness meditation, breathing, grounding exercises, all of these things can really, really help to just slow down the process. When we're in grief, especially early grief, we might have great anxiety, which, I have to do something. And then in the mind, and then your body's saying, no, I need to really lay on the couch and just eat ice cream and cry. So trying to push too hard can actually make your functioning on the estate really, really impossible. So it's finding that balance of, taking care of body, taking care of mind, and then when you can focus, taking care of estate requirements and getting help. That is one of the biggest things that I never could have processed my husband's estate without help, without somebody helping me make the spreadsheet, somebody helping me contact the organizations. There's just this list, and I write about this in my books, list of things to do to prepare for processing the estate so that you can do it as smoothly as possible.
Now, we have a lot of vendors in Executorium, and I'm sure you work with some of them as well, that handle kind of the technical part. But I don't think generally people understand the importance of dealing with the grief. I know personally, I've been through, I think, 5 major grief experiences. My best friend in college passed, and then my parents and my wife's parents. And so I went from I had no skills. When I was in college, my best friend passed. My best tool was alcohol. And I found that I could get drunk and avoid life. And that worked really well in avoiding the pain short term, but it really wasn't an effective strategy. I'm just saying, anybody out there, don't try that at home. It's not really the right solution. Now, I will say the last one, no, it's not a good solution. The last one was my mother who passed, but by then I became a religious Jew where we have very structured procedures that force us to stop and address the grief. And I kind of poo-pooed them when I was younger. But I have to say that the difference in my processing between my father, who was number 2 of those 5, and then my mother was totally different. I've never processed the grief of my father, and he passed 25 years ago, because I never took the time to stop. And so it's kind of like a wound that never gets healed. Whereas my mother has been more something I've been able to celebrate and honor. And it turns out tonight is the anniversary of her passing, and we're having a dinner and able to joyfully remember her and honor her and all that. Talk a little bit about, nobody tells people, for the most part, you have to stop and check in your emotions. So what's kind of like the first step? Because people are kind of running so quickly and they're busy with all these extra work. And they probably don't want to talk to you about their mindset, their heart, their come from it. I would call it. How do you get people's attention on that? And how do you let them know how important it is to at least stop and do some mental wellness check-in?
Well, usually the body tells them. Usually they don't need to be told, because something will break, something won't function. They can't sleep, they can't eat, they can't get themselves back to work, and this is why part of my business, I'm shifting into corporate grief education, because corporations are losing millions of dollars every year on not supporting their bereaved, rather than, support bereavement reintegration. With 3 days off to mourn your loved one is just not, especially if it's a primary, spouse, partner, child, sibling, parent. So it's becoming aware of what your body needs and taking care of those needs, realizing that if you don't, and that's like you were saying with the alcohol, that's what most of us do, because our society is so uneducated about grief processing.
Right.
And then eventually something happens where the bottom falls out and your body will just stop and you won't be able to do the things you need to do. So if you give it some time to process, and it doesn't mean, taking a month off and going and sitting on a beach, most of us don't have the luxury to be able to do that, right. But it means slowing down and deeply prioritizing the things that need to be done. Red flag, yellow flag, green flag in the spreadsheet in your whole life, and making sure that only the really urgent things are attended to when you need to, and taking extra rest and extra time when you can.
The other challenge of this particular experience is that, very commonly the person that's passing is somebody who's very close to us, right? And so if you say, well, how many people in your life are you close to? We all have a small list. We all should have more, and it's hard to develop those relationships. They're valuable. We cherish the ones we have. But when somebody in your closest circle, a parent, a sibling, spouse, passes, we've now lost somebody on top of everything else that we might go to with, hey, I have a problem. I'm not doing well here. Exactly. Mom, what do I do? Oh, mom's not here anymore. Oh, husband, spouse aren't here anymore to help. And also their passing sometimes can create senses of guilt, or, gee, I should have spent more time with him or her. I shouldn't. In my best friend's case, when he passed, we had an argument the night before, and it was trivial, and I learned, don't leave relationships with arguments that you're not willing to leave the rest of your life, because it's painful. So,
and there's always guilt in grief. There's always guilt, no matter how the person died. I mean, I'm obviously more focused on suicide loss recovery because of my husband's death, but every death, the people who are remaining have guilt. It's just one of the normal grief processes.
Wow. And suicide, it's just like, it's becoming so much more common that I never knew anybody that I know of. Maybe it happened. And just in the last few years, we've been, not me personally or my immediate family, but we've been surrounded by people who whether it be COVID or just the economy or this kind of lack of connection. And then in both cases, neither completed the suicide, right? Fortunately for me, one was at my house, if you imagine, and one was a very close friend of mine. That's enough of attention. Hey, we all have to stop here. Not only does he need help, I need to deal with that. Like, that was a pretty traumatic experience. So, what do you do? Obviously, you're in this business. It's, I guess, I don't know, it's like does the cobbler have shoes or not? But, what do you do to catch yourself? Because in those moments, it's easy to shut down. It's easy to ignore your own self, your own wellness. What are some of the things that you do to kind of catch yourself and say, hey, maybe I need to stop here for a second. Maybe I am in pain. Maybe I am trying to stuff down some feelings that need to come out.
Yeah, thank you. Great question, Bill. I have, since my husband died in 2016, really, really pursued many types of mind-body connection experiences. My trauma therapy, because I developed PTSD after his passing, was somatic therapy based. And I was already a yogi, and now I've just completed my 2-year mindfulness meditation teacher training. And
Well,
yeah, it was wonderful. So with daily meditation and mindfulness practices, the really intense difficulty difficulties that come across in life are lessened because you're in shape for it. So, for example, you're going to run a marathon, right? You don't just all of a sudden get out on the course and start running. But with grief, that's what it's like. You have to run an emotional marathon with no training. But when you have tools like the ones I've developed, practicing mindfulness, living a mindful lifestyle, meditating every day, when these things happen, and they do, life's going to throw you a curveball, whether you like it or not.
life's gonna life.
Life's going to life. I'm much more prepared and aware. So, for example, even yesterday, I noticed I was feeling anxious. And in the old days, I might have not really realized I was feeling anxious. I might have done something, self-destructive, like drink some alcohol or go do something that's not supportive to my health. And now, with this regular practice of mindfulness and study, I can recognize, okay, something's not right. And then sit quietly for a minute. What's bothering me? Why am I feeling bothered right now? Instead of, in the old days, it would be yell at my husband or get mad at my dogs or, something that's just not productive and not healthy and really not helpful. So now I can just sit, okay, I'm feeling anxious. Let's think about what I was doing an hour ago or 2 hours ago or yesterday that might have given rise to this feeling. Obviously, if you're in early grief, you've got your answer. But and it took a little bit of quiet introspection, and I figured it out. I figured out what was bothering me, and then I was able to pivot my next few hours, make a shift with that awareness to be supportive to my mental health and well-being.
I'm gonna make a note of that one. Yelling at spouse is not a good idea. Let me just finish that one real quick. Oops.
Please, that almost never improves your situation.
Yeah, no. I can speak as a husband who's been barely married for 36 years, one day at a time, 1 minute at a time. It never helps. Whatever you think is going to help by
Barely
yelling.
married.
Yeah, I'm hanging on by a thread here, honey. I'm just really hanging on. So, okay. So some of the things you describe are the result of, I think, sharpening your awareness feature or your awareness, antenna is clean and ready to go. But I know you have and talk about and coach people in daily practices that keep that antenna connected, keep that antenna clean and paying attention, because you can't just one day, I guess you can, one day realize you're in a mess, but better to be daily prepared so that even the smaller things you can adjust along the way. So describe a little bit kind of what daily or weekly practices you recommend or involve in or coach in to help people, prepare so they're not. We all have problems, but to avoid those problems, or we could start those things while we're in a grief cycle as something to help us on a positive level.
Yeah. Well, number one, and again, thank you for these great questions. Number one is taking that deep breath. Anytime you notice you're getting
Can I just stop for you a
off
second?
balance.
Deep breath is the greatest free tool created in history. And my daughter, that's my tell. My daughter, when she hears me breathe deep, what's bothering you, Dad? What's bothering you? She knows when I'm bothered, I stop, I've trained myself, I take a deep breath and let it out, maybe 2 or 3, and it at least improves wherever you're at. It doesn't necessarily solve the problem, but for anybody listening, and I don't even talk about deep breathing like an hour-long I'm just saying, when somebody's mad at me or says something that wants to trigger me, that deep breath will improve my results tremendously. So I'm just going to echo that for you. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I love deep breathing.
And it's natural. It's not like it's unnatural for our bodies now in our Western, coffee, try to get 18 hours out of every day kind of culture, or 20 or 22 hours. We're not stopping to take these deep breaths. So that's part of what's so hard about learning these tools, is that we're not conditioned to do this.
Right.
But if you do it, and what I was going to say was, when we evolved, we have this natural deep breath that happens. It's a yawn, right? You
Yeah.
ever notice yourself yawning at a really inappropriate time?
Yeah.
It's not because you're tired. It's
Right.
because your body needs a little bit more oxygen because you've been probably breathing in your chest and very shallow.
When you get upset
The
or
other
nervous,
thing,
yeah, you
yeah.
be shallow, and
The
so your
other
body's
thing
saying
is
stop.
the other thing is the sigh, right? And anybody out there who's a parent knows this sigh, right? Especially if you've parented teenagers. You just
Yes.
sometimes you just and these two things are actually nervous system regulators. The deep breath and pressing your fingertips against the third eye area in between the two eyebrows. This sends a signal to your nervous system that says everything's okay. You see kids at school getting frustrated, putting their heads down on their desks.
Yeah.
It's naturally wired in us to
Wow.
self-calm.
Wow.
Sometimes you shake it out, right? You see ducks do that all the time. Ducks aren't upset about, my dog barking at them 20 seconds after my dog barked at them. They shook it off, right? So we need to be more like a duck, essentially. So let me just share a deep breathing practice because a lot of people don't understand what it is. So I invite you to bring your hands to your belly and then soften your shoulders because usually we're up here, right? And then when you breathe in and out through the nose, if you can, expand your belly outward. That's the inhale. And then on the exhale, just sigh it out very soft and slow. If your belly didn't move, don't feel bad. That's how we're conditioned, our chest breathing. But if your belly didn't move, keep practicing that with hands on belly until you can feel the torso, the lower torso, expand and contract. Now, what that does is it gets us into the more calm side of our nervous system.
Right away.
Yeah. So when I'm teaching stress management or grief education seminars, one of the things that I teach is a tool called Story. And it's whenever you notice that the first step is awareness, right? I notice I'm uncomfortable. And the more you practice, the more you're about to yell at your boss or your coworker. And then
Not
you
your spouse.
stop.
Not your spouse.
Not your spouse, whoever you're about to yell at, or whatever it is that whatever behavior you're about to do that is thoughtless or mindless, we can bring these mindfulness tools into any moment. So the first thing is you stop and you take 3 deep breaths. So we've just done that. The next one is observe. So stop, it's STORY. Stop, take 3 deep breaths, and then observe. So once you took those 3 deep breaths, your body's feeling a little more calm. And I can get all neuroscience-y if you want about the parasympathetic nervous system. But basically, you're in the side of your you've stimulated the side of your nervous system that helps clear the brain, right? The opposite of grief brain, the opposite of anxiety. So then you can think more clearly because you took those few deep breaths and calmed. And sometimes it takes 2 rounds of deep breaths, because some people, when I'm first teaching them, think a deep breath is this. Right. That is not.
That's panic.
Right. And that's breathing up here, and that escalates. We're trying to de-escalate. So you stop, take the 3 deep breaths, observe possibilities. So you're observing, I was about to yell at my boss. And now that I'm calm and thinking clearly, I realize that is not my best course of action. That does not support my health and well-being.
Probably not.
Right? And then the R in Story is respond. Instead of reacting, right? You've now de-escalated and you can respond. I don't think I had what you said quite clear. Can you please reframe it or tell me again so that I can make sure I understand? Get curious, ask questions. Don't do something destructive. And then the why, because it's a learning process, right? You're writing your story, the story of your interaction with your boss, the story of your interaction with your spouse, with your kids, with the driver that just cut you off, right? The why is, yay, I did it, because it's always good to celebrate. Or, yeah, I'm going to try harder next time because I didn't quite get there this time. But it's a practice. And the more you practice it, the more mindful and healthy you'll be able to be.
You know, I was a competitive speaker in high school and college, and our coach, when I was in high school, so I did a lot of public speaking in front of large groups, and then it's carried on. But one of the techniques we learned, because people are scared or nervous. Nervous or excited, the same. I learned the same thing. So I say people tell themselves they're nervous, but really they're excited, but they're not channeling the energy in a productive way. And one way to do that is, the coach taught me from when I was in high school, is before you start your speech, just take a deep breath. Now, 3 is better than 1. That's what I was taught. So to this day, whenever I do a lot of speaking or I lead services at my synagogue, whenever I do that I stop and take the deep breath. And it's amazing how just stopping like that, I guess, do my story.
Yeah.
Because I want to
Write your own story.
I want to
Don't
celebrate.
let life happen to you.
Yeah. It's amazing. The breathing is, again, it's free, but you have to learn how to use it. You have to learn how to execute it. So obviously this information and expertise you have is of great value to executors or people with stress in their life, grief situations, obviously. I know you also do some corporate training. So if someone was interested in getting more from you, learning how to integrate these practices into their daily life or some weekly programs or books and such, what's the best way to get in touch with you and then take these ideas you shared today a little step further?
Thank you. Yeah, I love to teach. I'm available for corporate trainings and one-on-one coaching and training. So inhabitjoy.com is my website. You can always email me, Michelle at inhabitjoy.com. And there it is. That's my website.
There's a big joyful smile.
And I have a lot of really great things coming, including, it's not out yet, but I have a new blog that I'll be posting and sending out to my email list. So highly recommend you sign up for my email list. And what the blog will include is a practice like the 3 breaths we just did. Mm-hmm. Some of them are a little more technical and advanced, and a story to go with it about how these mindfulness tools that I have can help you out of any sticky situation and make sure that you're responding in a way that supports your health and well-being. And that's my blog that's currently up, and it'll still be up because there's a lot of really good articles in there about all sorts of different things. But my new mindfulness. Yeah, and there's a few meditations up there.
I'm excited to hear your meditation library. I'm sorry. I feel like a little kid running around your website here.
You're so cute.
What are you trying to talk? I'm going to what I enjoy, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not distracting at all to see these pictures of me flying by the screen. Thanks, Bill.
Oops.
Yeah, no, the meditation library, it just has a few entry-level meditations. One of the things that I love to do for my clients is create personal meditations. And this is something that's pretty unique to me. I have heard of other practitioners doing it. But so say you're really frustrated with the estate and you keep running into whatever that roadblock is. For me, it was oftentimes just going in the room where all the paperwork was. Mm-hmm. And so what I will do for you is create a, 3 to 7 minute, depending on what your attention span is. Maybe it's 1 minute. Meditation for you to just listen to really quick on your phone. I can send it in a voice note and okay. And I'm going to talk you through how to get over that threshold or through whatever's blocking you from continuing the project that you want to do.
And just then I did, you kind of triggered me to take a deep breath again. And I have to tell you, whatever triggers deep breaths is good because they're free, they're healthy, they're just so productive. And sometimes we have to get in the right space, and the meditation kind of gives you permission to do the breathing. I think part of meditation is you just block time out to do the meditation, which includes your breathing. You probably could have people read some stupid novel. As long as they were breathing, they would get about 80% of the value of meditation. I don't know. Yeah. I don't mean to pretend your work, but I'm just saying meditation is valuable, but part of the value is just stopping and having time for yourself, acknowledging that's important. Like my mental health is important. My focus is important. My relaxation is important.
And being in touch with your mental and physical and emotional body. Yeah. We're so out of touch. We're hardly ever where we are, right? We're in the future planning, or we're in the past, something happened that is taking our attention.
Right.
And the present moment is really, if you think about it, all we have.
Yep.
Now, we can't just stand around and breathe 24/7. I get that. But anytime you can come, I call it coming home. So even when I'm meditating, thoughts come when you're meditating. I've been meditating for decades and I still have thoughts. I know there are some really advanced practitioners out there who can clear their mind, but I think this is a fallacy that people who are new to meditation think, I can't meditate because my mind races.
Right.
Minds secrete thoughts the way that, our mouth secretes saliva. It's a natural process. Where we get our benefit to gain control of our lives and support our health and well-being is when we notice that we're thinking, that we're away from where we are, that we're not where our body is, and we bring it back. It's that development of control, the bringing back, that allows us to, in a moment when we're doing story, when we're practicing story, that allows us to come back more quickly and efficiently when we're not sitting and meditating, but when we're faced with that conflict at work.
Right.
Or at home. And then we can come back, write our story about the moment, respond in a way that we're really proud of instead of a way that we regret later.
And I think to your other point, that it's not about being 100% clear of mind. I mean, that's not necessarily the destination we're going to get to. It's wherever you are to incrementally improve, your connections with your family and friends and life and whatever. The improvement is where the value is. Now, some people have dramatic improvement. Some people want to teach this stuff. But I know for me, it's something that every time I meet somebody like you who's a coach in this, it reminds me to go back to those fundamentals and the power of deep breathing, the power of just silencing my mind and blocking out time. And I'll just for those listening, because a lot of you are real estate agents like me or business people, we always say we're going to think about something. The truth is we never think about what we say we're going to think about. I tell people, put in your calendar right now just an hour to think about it, or half an hour. And I have a whiteboard, and I have whiteboards here. And there are times that I will for an hour, and I'll think about something, and I'll make notes, or I'll, a pad of paper, or I'll actually think about it in my calendar. But this is where the mind just gets so distracted that it drives us crazy. And we all need to find a practice to get us to slow down, to focus, relax, and be more empowered. So.
Well, and let the ideas flow. For me, another tool that I highly recommend people use besides the breathing and the checking in is journaling.
Yeah.
Actually with a pen on paper. I know that's going to make some people shudder. I don't even know how to write with a pen anymore. I get it. Practice. Even so, first thing in the morning, a lot of people have heard of the practice of morning pages. I am a get up and go in the morning person, so it's difficult for me to add another practice in the morning, but just jot a few things down. Maybe you had a dream. Maybe you have something you want to make sure not to forget that's happening later in the day. That's a real centering practice. And then in my practice and my training, what I recommend is the evening journaling. So last thing before bed, we're all trying to get better sleep. We're all trying to get off our phones earlier, or at least we're thinking about it, right? Because we know it's interfering with our sleep, and sleep is health, sleep is life, sleep is everything. If you need help with sleep, contact me. I'll coach you. You'll get a better sleep and your entire life will improve.
Wow.
So one of the things we can do is right before sleep, we turned off our screens and get out that paper journal and your pen and just write. And what will happen is you can get in this flow of, write about your day, right? And something might come out of your pen that you weren't aware of that was bugging you. And, okay. So now I see it more clearly. You can get to that observe part of story. Okay. And have a moment, maybe you're more in flow because you're in a safe place, you're breathing deeply, your ideas are expanding rather than contracting. And so you're going to be much more creative, much more open to ideas. And that's why, I'm going to think about this for the next 30 minutes is really hard. As an author, writing books and blogs can be impossible. You've heard of writer's block? Right. Writer's block happens because you're stepping out of flow into the, fight or flight. And so if we can journal, or, for me, I get ideas walking my dogs. Oh, yeah. And in the shower. But walking the dogs is, sometimes I have to stop, and I'm also a poet, and sometimes I have to stop and write down a poem because it just comes in when I'm out in nature. I'm disconnected, it's just great. So these are the types of things that can help you get back into flow. If I'm stuck and I go take a 10-minute walk, I can, I set aside an hour to write, right? And I can't write. So I sit there and force myself and erase and write and erase and write and erase for an hour. I've done nothing productive. I sit, I'm stuck, I can't write. I go for a 10-minute walk. I come back and I'm flowing for 45 minutes. Wow. So these things, when you say I don't have time to meditate, I don't have time to disconnect, I don't have time to journal, really, you do if you prioritize it, and you need to prioritize it to be your best self, to be your most productive self.
Yeah, no doubt. Michelle Collins, you are a fountain of ideas and practices and help. And again, anybody who wants to get in touch with her, the website is inhabitjoy.com. And there's her phone number and her email, michelle@inhabitjoy.com. And the website will pull up real fast. If I was faster on this stuff, I'd be better. But I am what I am. I'll be okay with that.
You just like messing with my website, admit it.
I like messing with your website. Inhabitjoy.com. Michelle Collins, thank you so much for sharing with us today on the Executorium podcast.
Thank you for having me, Bill. I really think it's important to share these types of tools along with all of the other amazing knowledge that you share.
Well, thank you. And for the rest of you, this is the Executorium podcast. We get together every week and interview people who help executors, in this case, going through grief or the normal overwhelm of additional work that can come on place. We want to bring resources to you to help you be more effective, as well as those professionals on the website, Executorium, to learn how to be more effective in dealing with our customers and our clients. You can see Executorium, executorium.com, EXECUTORIUM. And on the website, there's 4 great tiles on the front. There's a director of state providers. There's a director of government resources, which is fantastic for forms, legal forms and such. And then below, there's some learning articles and learning great material to learn for executors and also professionals to share with the customers, be more effective. If you go to the Director of Estates and you put in Clackamas County, Oregon, which I just learned is a real county. I thought she was teasing me when we started. I asked where she's from. Clackamas County, and you put in show the county, you'll see a list of vendors. Of course, it's not a big county, so there's not a lot. If you know somebody here, feel free to reach out to them and add them in. But Probate Care is one of the vendors, and State Auctions, and go down to Inhabit Joy, and she provides grief support. And then as a vendor, you click on that, and you have your the details and their links and their contact information to help you be more effective to be of service. So again, thank you for joining the Executorium podcast. I'm at Bill Gross, Probate on social media. Bill Gross, thank you so much. And as always, make today your best day ever. Thank you so much.